But yeah, the Trump tariffs kicked off. The stock market has been plummeting.
We're seeing job losses. I'm
Yeah.
seeing like on LinkedIn people I know, like little people I know who are like more advanced in their careers, professionals, like senior people who unfortunately have lost their jobs. So a lot's happening,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing a lot of the economy bros, right, the finance bros in the spaces. They're putting out the predictions. I'm seeing people who are more right wing leaning, more left wing leaning. I want to ask you, Hussein, what are your predictions
Hmm.
for the rest of these 4 years
Okay.
on the economy? What do you think our economy is going to look like for
As far
the rest of Trump's
as
presidency?
far as long term, like even Trump's presidency, like 3 to 4 years out, honestly don't have a good answer or a good idea. But what I will say is on tariffs specifically, I think the economic literature is pretty unambiguous and clear about how they're not good, um, how they're inflationary, because what happens when you impose a tariff is that any American company that is importing goods from a country that has a tariff placed on it, it is the American company that actually pays the tariff, right? So if there's a 49% tariff, which there is right now on Cambodia and anything that's imported from Cambodia, then whoever is the American producer or the American company that's shipping things over from Cambodia is paying the cost of those goods plus an additional 49% that they pay to the U.S. Customs. So it's not actually Cambodia that's paying for them. And so what happens is that producer of that thing or the company that is importing those goods, they're going to try as best as they can to pass along most of that cost to the consumer. Right, so it's inflationary because now things are going to get a lot more expensive, and the average American buying power is going to go down. Especially when you consider that a lot of our clothes, a lot of our plastic goods, a lot of our even like metal goods are almost all imported.
Yeah.
Now the Trump, like I guess the pro-Trump crowd, what they say is, and this is what Trump himself says, is that eventually, I think there was even I don't know how true this. I'm not going to quote this from Trump. But basically, the thought process is that because basically the American companies, what they're going to do is they're going to realize that hey, it's not worth importing these things and paying this extra tariff. So what we're going to actually do is now we're going to be incentivized to create our own manufacturing within the United States.
And I want to ask you about that. I'm gonna give you some moment to sip your tea.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see you're
yeah.
grabbing for it, and I'll talk a little bit about it. And I want to hear your thoughts, right? Because I'm hearing from like the economists. I don't want to call them like Trump voters. I don't know what they voted for, but the economists are thinking like, hey, this might be like a great plan, right? This might make more jobs. Like there's this prediction, right? Like, hey, these manufacturers, instead of going to China or Thailand or wherever, they're going to say, hey, you know what? To avoid these tariffs, we're just going to start putting, our factories in America, and that's going to create jobs for Americans. Again, I don't really know much about the whole situation at all. I've heard that though that like that would be a good thing, but one thing that kind of doesn't make sense to me when I hear that is like, do we want factory jobs?
Yeah, okay, that's
because
the perfect that's the perfect idea.
Yeah, yeah.
So before we even get into that, again, like I said, the economic literature on this is pretty unambiguous. If you go back to Adam Smith, who's considered like the father of capitalism, right? He talks about free trade and how free trade is much better than protectionism, right? Which is, having everything in your country or whatever. The reason that is because every single country might have something that they're better at doing than another country, right? And we do this in our everyday lives too, even in businesses on a smaller scale. And similar to how if you're running a business, say I'm running a online fitness coaching business, I'm really good at coaching people in fitness, right? I'm not as good as building my social media presence, right, and my marketing presence. So what I might do as the founder of this company is I hire someone who's better at that, right? And so I can allocate my time to making more money on the thing that I'm actually good at. and actually the difference that I pay, like what I save myself in that payment in time, is worth way more than what I'm actually paying out to that company.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the pretty simply put, this is the idea between like,
and this is our economy,
a free trade and these
Right.
global economies and stuff.
And Trump's trying to make it that, oh no, we're going to go back to doing things that we used to do that now other countries got better at, and we've benefited from.
And we've benefited
like,
for years.
We used
right?
to make cars, and like I think people are really held up on that, right? Like people, that's a common thing. Oh, we used to make cars, we used to make coal, whatever. And it kind of goes to like I think like, and I don't know how else to say this in a way that doesn't sound bad, but it kind of goes, I feel like, to this notion of like there is this very poor white population in America that used to have jobs, and they don't have these jobs because these jobs aren't high skilled labor jobs, and they haven't adapted to the new economy.
So
right? And these people just want these jobs, and it's like, I guess like, I mean, like on one point I understand why these people want these jobs, right? On the other hand, I'm like, well, what's America's biggest export now?
Are you asking?
Yeah, you don't know.
No.
Okay. I wasn't ready.
In the meantime, like since we've kind of globalized as an economy, our workforce, to your point, has become one of the most highly skilled workforces in the world, right? So then the question is like, okay, do we want people who could have been coding, right, or could have been integral pieces of these American startups, people who are at OpenAI, like stuff like that? Do we want people who could have been doing those things instead looking for manufacturing jobs that barely keep the lights on?
That are going to be soon given to robots anyways.
I mean, if we get to that point, yeah.
Robotics is moving that direction.
Robotics might be moving that direction in the next 10 years. We might not even need actual people to be on these, assembly lines and stuff, right? So that's like the quintessential question. I think for most unpartisan economists are pretty clear that, yeah, we probably don't want that. And even there are tweets from like JD Vance himself, like years ago, talking about how we should avoid protectionism and we should instead work on maximizing free trade. And the good thing about free trade and this whole competitive advantage thing that I'm telling you about is also that it is a war. It acts as a deterrent for war and aggression too, right? Because if I'm reliant on China for X amount of whatever comes in from China, steel, let's say from China. China is one of the biggest steel manufacturers. So I'm reliant on X amount of steel from China every year. I'm also a lot less likely to do anything to provoke China to attack us, or they attack us, or we attack them, because there's an existing relationship that we have through trade.
Right.
So it also, that's like another aspect to it, where it also acts as this deterrent against even war.
Right. And that's like when capitalism is like used well, like we see like how the world's a more peaceful place. It's like, hey man, if we're all eating, why am I trying to bomb my neighbor? Like you force everyone to rely on each other in some way for there to be peace. Now, I'm sure we could continue talking about this for all and on, but I think simply put, at least at now for a fact, the economy is taking a hit. Time will tell if all the other countries are just going to actually come to the table of America and say, please, we'll pay your tariffs or whatever, and this will help. You don't think this is going to happen. I'm dubious that it will happen. Maybe it will happen. It's good for us if it does happen, but I'm somewhat dubious. You're dubious as well, right? But for right now, the economy is taking a hit. So the next question is, are we moving towards a Great Depression recession?
Mm-hmm.
And what are we doing now in the stock market?
Buy the dip.
Right. So I've been following these YouTubers. One of them is called.
This is not financial advice.
This is financial advice. So no, it's not. But I've been watching some YouTubers. One of which is called Why I Learn. Other one's called BizPath. They're these guys. They're like guys in their late 20s or mid 20s who are like business people, and they have Call of Duty commentary channels, only playing the old CODs. But these guys both have six figures and like six-figure or like $1 million portfolios.
Uh-huh.
And they just make videos about buying the dip. Like I think they make pretty good advice, right? And like as far as I can tell, like this is coming from someone who's like a beginner investor, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be doing what the rest of the crowd is doing. When people are thinking the economy is doing well, buy stocks, that's a sign of, hey, was coming up is going to come down. And when people are selling their stocks, when they think, hey, man, I need to get my money out the market, well, that's the only time that stocks are on for a discount.
Mm-hmm.
And if the economy is going to recover, right?
If the economy is going to recover,
right,
that's
I'm going to buy.
Yeah.
Now, that's why I'm saying, like, to me, I'm thinking, well, this is one of the best economic opportunities of my lifetime. I'm going to put every free $20 I can find in the stock market. But the only way that's not a good thing for me to do is if we generally are going through true American economic collapse. Right? But like my like thought process is, well, if that's actually going to happen, then my money itself isn't even going to be worth anything anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
So
what?
You might as well,
what's my cash
you might
worth?
as well potentially
right.
come out on the other side.
Well, I rather bet on I'm already living here. I rather bet on the country that it has probably like the most robust economy on earth.
Yeah, if not one of, if not the most.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, we might take a hit. It might even be like a couple years, but is it going to be Great Depression worthy? Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. I mean, I don't know.
What do you think?
I don't know. I have never lived through a depression, right? Not like this. Like we lived through 08, but we were also 9 years old.
I was
right?
living 08. Best time of my life. Modern Warfare 2.
Right?
Let's go.
We lived through 08, but we were also 9 years old.
My dad was dressed through 08, not me. I was gaming, bro.
We obviously weren't around for the Great Depression. Right. So like I honestly I can't say. But it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, that's really all I can.
So you have no prediction.
I have no prediction. I
like that. I just think open.
Yeah, I have no prediction.
What do you have like any plans you want to share with us?
I'm also fully willing to. I'm fully open to the potential that Trump is a madman and has some crazy. I don't think it would be something that happens intentionally, but I'm also open to the idea that maybe this plan could, on a like decent time horizon, actually be better for us than like maybe he does bring all these countries to the table, right?
That'd be crazy.
I don't think so, but like on the off chance that it happens, like I'm also open to being like eating crow for that, right?